Hello, testing. Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope everyone has had a great morning so far. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Abigail Green. I'm a student athlete here on the volleyball team, and I'm currently getting an associate's in science, and eventually going to get a bachelor's in biology, and just recently decided that I was going to be an OBGYN. Today, I'm not going to kind of go into how anxiety and depression has affected my entire life. I'm just going to talk about how it's affected my time here at South Puget Sound Community College. But before I go into that, when I was telling the story of my event to everyone who would ask about it, they would always ask the same question, and that was, how are you feeling? And the only thing I could get my body to form, the only words that would come out, was that I was anxious. And so it almost became this ironic joke I could not stop telling, because I'm giving a speech on anxiety, but I'm anxious to give the speech, but I'm only anxious because I have anxiety. And the more I told it, the more I started to hear what I was saying. Like, oh my God, how are you going to get up there in front of all these people when you have so much anxiety? You're not qualified, you can't do this, what are you doing? But then it hit me that you don't have to have it all together, and you don't have to know what you're doing to make an impact on others. And so that's why I'm up here today, because nobody who's struggling with anything wants to hear someone who has no idea what they're talking about talk to them. And so even though I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm completely unqualified, I want to share my story. But before I get into my story and what I'm trying to share, I want to give a little backstory. So about 2 years ago, I was a general manager in training of a McDonald's, making good money, I had a nice car, and I was living in a pretty nice apartment by myself. And even though I was successful for my age and extremely successful for how young I was so unsatisfied and so unhappy, and I had no idea why. So I like to call it my midlife crisis at 19. And I put my notice in, I crossed all my T's, dotted all my I's, and I moved to Texas. And Texas was an extreme culture shock, let me tell you that. But I lived there for about 6 months, and again, just kind of found the same thing. Super unhappy, couldn't figure out what I wanted or what I was trying to do, or, I just couldn't find my niche. Worked a few jobs, didn't like it, and I got this calling to check out the school. So that's what I did. I checked out the community college there and was really close to getting enrolled, but the out-of-state tuition was out of this world. So I kind of just pushed it aside and decided, nah, not for me right now. And so I went on while I was living there and so unsatisfied, so I made another impulsive decision, and I moved to California. And I lived with my oldest sister for about 2 months, and found the same thing. In California is somewhere that I have always wanted to live. I've always loved those sunny beach babe vibes and wanted to be a part of that, but I was miserable. And so again, I checked out the school. That's what I wanted, let's check it out. But we know how California is compared to Texas costs, so out-of-state tuition was 10 times worse. And so again, I just kind of pushed it aside, decided this isn't for me, nah. And as the time went on in California, I worked this job at night, and all I did was sleep. I didn't enjoy the beautiful beaches or any of the sunshine because I was so miserable. There was something that I needed to do, but I had no idea what that was. And so finally, I realized the only thing I keep checking out at every location I'm at is school. And I wanted nothing more than to get an education and to better myself so I could make something of myself. I could have a future that I wanted. And so, and if you know me, like 2 years ago, I have so much pride. Probably a character flaw of mine, but I'm so prideful and so just stick it to them. But I dropped that pride because when I left here, I said I was never coming back. I was leaving for better. I don't need this job. I'm going to find something better. And I didn't. And I had to come home with my tail in between my legs because I hadn't found something better. On paper, what I was going to was not anywhere near what I had before. But I registered for the school online, I got all signed up for classes even in California, and I moved here. And started school summer quarter. I took 2 classes at first, and I did really well. I was extremely happy. I had found my niche. I was excited to do homework, because this is what I had wanted for so long. And I remember this day very vividly. It was a Thursday, and I was in my English class, and I was supposed to be listening, but I kind of wandered on the website, and I found the athletics page. And I saw that there was a volleyball tryout in 2 days. That Saturday, there was a volleyball tryout. And thank God your girl has hops, because I made the team. And now, I'm a full-time student athlete. What? Like, this is a dream I couldn't even dream. Too big for me to realize or even think I could ever have. But I had it. And with that came some worry and some fear, because how am I going to support myself? You know, what am I going to do? Throughout my entire life, I have never been given opportunities like everyone else. I've always had to do more, and I was never doing the things my kids my age were doing, because I had to support myself at a very young age. And so this opportunity is huge, you know, completely unreal. But like I said, I was worried. How am I going to pay for this? I've never been able to afford full-time school. I don't get financial aid. What am I going to do? But my coach, who is literally the most amazing woman in the entire world, and I will never be able to thank enough for everything she's done for me. She gave me a work-study job here at the school. It worked perfect with both my volleyball and school schedule, and it was exactly what I needed to pay my bills. I took out some loans to cover my rent or to cover school, so it was totally fine, but this is exactly what I needed. But of course, this story isn't all about the highs. There's a downhill somewhere, otherwise I wouldn't be up here. And this next part is really hard for me to talk about, because I'm not very good at being vulnerable, and especially in front of a bunch of people I hardly know. And the worst part is too, because I have this feelings of what you guys could be thinking, and it's just like, how can you be given such an amazing opportunity, something you've never been given before? How can you mess that up? But I did. And I don't know where or how it started, but all of a sudden I had a huge course load that I had never had before. I had a huge schedule with volleyball, and I had to work as well. And it sucks because I can't even pinpoint when it started, but I know, I'm kind of going to list them out. I'll start with volleyball, and then school, and then work. But volleyball has always been the one thing, the only thing that can break me. And so every mistake I made, everything I did wrong, every time a coach would yell, every time I'd be benched under somebody else, it got to me. And that little voice inside my head kept telling me that you suck, you're not good enough, what are you doing, why are you here, you're not worthy, you don't deserve this. And I believed it. And so I would go home every night after practice or a game, and I would hear those little voices in my head about how I didn't deserve it, and all I wanted to do was sleep, because I was so disappointed in myself for being this pity player is what I was telling myself. And so I would stand there, and I would look at my homework, and I would do some of the assignments, but I would be so exhausted and so drained that some of them would be missed. And so they started to pile up. Homework assignments after homework assignment after homework assignment. And then it got to the point where I had so many assignments due and so many that I had to do that were missing, and I didn't have time to do the assignments that were due, and I was so exhausted and drained, but I still had to do these assignments that were overdue, and it was extreme panic and chaos in my brain, because when you're in the midst of an anxiety attack, you don't see things rationally. There's a never-ending list of things that do not stop. And so, as time went on, it started to get worse. And it was every night constant thing where I would come home after having this practice of being so mean to myself and staring at the laptop, trying to do the homework but not being able to process what was happening or process how to do it. And so then depression kicked in. And depression told anxiety it was time for bed. And so I slept, and I slept, and I slept, and I slept. And the homework assignments started to pile on even more. And the more the homework assignments piled on, the more that I panicked, and the more that I panicked, the more that I shut down, and the more that I shut down, the more that I slept. And the more that the cycle started to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And so then I started to miss class. And that's the easy part, going to class. But I couldn't. Because I was in this deep, dark pit that I had put myself in. And the more I missed class, the more assignments I missed, and the more I got behind, and the more the cycle went on. And then, after being in the spot of so disappointed in myself for how deep I had gotten and where I was, I started to miss work. No call, no shows, hours late, not knowing my schedule. And they were never understanding, but why would they be? When I was a boss, it was always, where are you, not how are you? And I wasn't telling anyone what was wrong, so how would they know? And as time went on, it just got worse. And we started to near the end of the quarter, and I had gotten to a point where I knew it was too late. I knew what I had done. I knew that it was over. And so I was in my car, my safe space by myself, and I started to bawl. And I said to myself that I'm not okay. And it was okay that I wasn't okay. And that something was different in my brain. And it was okay. And I had to learn to do things differently. I had to learn to cope differently because something was not okay, and it's okay to not be okay. And in that moment, this weight was lifted off my shoulders. This deep breath I had taken was like the first deep breath in 3 months. I could finally breathe again. This thing that I had been holding on to, this cancerous thing that was controlling me and had a hold over me, was released. I let it go into the world. It was not my burden to bear anymore. It was out there. Man. And then I did that a few more times in my safe spaces, in the car again, in the shower, in my bed at night. I made it a conversation. They were just words now. It was something I had spoken. So then, later on in that time frame, I'm hanging out with my sister, who is my best friend, and we're just having chit-chat, girl talk, and because I had made this a conversation, I was like, you know what, I could probably slip this in here. I could probably tell her what's going on. And so I did. I told her, and her response, with ease, like in the best way, she's like, okay, like I'm here for you, I love you, okay. What? Like, complete shock. This person who I care so much about and love so much is totally okay with me not being okay. But my brain had told me that I was alone. Like, what? And you may not think that you're alone, and this may sound crazy to you, but before that moment, I thought I was completely alone and that no one would understand. But she did. And as corny as it sounds, another weight was lifted off my shoulders. I could breathe more than I ever could. But then, next up, I was telling my coach, the woman, gosh, who I looked up to so much, the woman who meant the world to me, the woman who gave me my first opportunity. I had to tell her what was wrong. I had to tell her I messed up. And she is one of those badass women, excuse me for my language, but that don't do that well with emotion. But when I told her, she told me that the person that she put on that team for tryouts was not who I was today, and that she saw that difference. But it wasn't that she was disappointed in me. She was disappointed in me for not reaching out to get help from her or the athletic department sooner when they actually could have done something. What? More people who want to help me? More people who care about me? I didn't know that I had these people, but I didn't even give them the chance to help me. I didn't reach out when they could have done something. I reached out when it was too late. And I hit a rock bottom. I ruined the only opportunity I've ever been given, but I'm glad I hit that rock bottom because the world forced me to talk about it. The world forced me to open up even though I didn't want to. I had always hidden my anxiety and depression because it was never public. But this time, my failure was so public that I had to bring it up to someone. I had to tell someone. And I'm glad I did, because I would not be the woman I am today I would not have a second chance of all those opportunities I originally had if I didn't speak up and tell people what was going on. I told my sister, I told my coach, I wrote an appeal letter to FAFSA, so I got my loans and my work study back, and I have the opportunity to play again next year as long as I meet the requirements. And you know, the battle's not over. Just because I conquered this one battle, anxiety and depression is something that is a part of you. It's something you live with forever. And it's something I'm always gonna have to struggle with. It's something I'm always gonna have to figure out ways to deal differently than other people. But I know that who I am right now, and everything I've done, and all the support system and people I've brought, and the mechanisms I've learned through speaking about it, I know that I can get through any battle, as hard as they may be. And I'll still have my downs, but I know that I can get through them. Before you guys leave today, if you sat here and you tuned out of the whole thing, it is completely okay. But I want you guys to leave with two things. One, I'm up here right now so that anybody out there struggling knows that they're not alone. Because you have me now. I'm putting myself out there so you guys can always come to me. You can find me at the Start Here desk, you can find me after this, you can find me on social media. I will always be here for each and every one of you struggling. You are not alone, and it is never okay to feel alone. And secondly, even though, like I said earlier, I'm completely unqualified, I do not have a PhD, I am not able to give advice, I want to leave and end on this note. Say it to yourself, in your safe space, wherever that may be. Say it to yourself. Let go of the control depression and anxiety has on you. Let go of it and say it out loud, because nobody deserves that control or that hold. But I want to thank you all for coming so much. It means the world to me of how many people showed up. And if you do struggle with anxiety and depression, and you feel as though you can't really relate to what I was saying, our counselor here, Ross Artwall, is going to share how my story can relate to each and every one of your stories. Thank you.